Welcome, and thank you for tuning in to the Human Training Your Dog is Begging You For podcast. Need help understanding your dog and their behaviors? Well, you've come to the right place. We're Charles and Laura Countryman, the founders of Canine Culture Dog Training in Dallas, Texas. And we're joined by Head of Dog Evaluations, Wyatt. From training, behavioral and emotional issues to the health and happiness of your dog, our intent is, really to help you understand your dog better, learn more about managing and training behaviors you'd like to see more of, and hopefully learn how to replace some of those behaviors you'd like to see less of. Our intent or our goal is to help you and your dog improve your relationship together and help you have a dog that's a joy to live with. On today's episode, I don't care how you feel about PAPs, we will not be talking about beer. Instead, we're going to be talking and digesting something called blue ribbon emotions and how understanding them helps you understand some of the behaviors you may see in your dog and how you can use that to help your dog. For those of you with psychology degrees, you probably want to move on because we're going to be very elementary for you. But yeah, there's a lot of psychology that goes into dog training. There's a lot more in it than you would possibly imagine, but it really does make sense because dogs are emotionally driven creatures. That's why we bond with them so well and they bond with us so well. So emotions, you cannot ignore them. And how most bad decisions, humans make are emotionally driven. The same can be true for dogs, or is true for dogs. Emotions typically don't drive really great decision-making processes. And Laura is the head of training here at Canine Culture. So her wheelhouse is overseeing training the trainers, making sure everyone's doing and learning everything that we can to make every training for every pup the best it can be. And she really leads the way in being the guardian of blue ribbon emotions and making sure that our trainers and our staff understand that and understand the significance and importance of that. So Laura, what got you into blue ribbon emotions?
Well, we went to a training seminar and there's 3 trainers there. One of them is Jay Jacks, and he is all about play and how that helps with dogs' emotional. And he's really big on the blue ribbon emotions, which drove me to the book that he said to look into. And the book is called Animals Make Us Human by Temple. And I think it's Grandin.
Yeah.
And it's more about all animals, but the first 2 chapters about dogs is very interesting to me. And another one I really like is If Your Dog Can Talk, and that's by Ralph Weber. And he goes back into the blue ribbon emotions. And it's not a new thing, but I think it's becoming a new thing in dog training to understand their behavior, which drives dogs, is the emotional behavior.
Emotions definitely drive behavior, for sure.
And the emotional, we all have this. We basically have, I'm not going over the third one, but the first 2 are base layers, and everyone has that. That basically keeps you breathing, tells you when you're hungry. It's just your auto motor functions. And the next one is emotional system, which is your limbic system. We have it. There's 6 of them. Dogs use pretty much 4 of them. So we'll go over each one, I guess, one at a time. Is that kind of what we're thinking doing?
Sure.
Okay. So the first one is seeking, and that facilitates energetic search and goal directive behavior. This system drives motivation. So what are your thoughts about the seeking in a dog?
Yeah, so seeking, if you weren't a dog trainer and you didn't, actually, even if you are a dog trainer, you probably don't realize it unless you've studied emotions and the impact it can have and the significance it has on training. But seeking, what really amazed me is when we read it and started studying it, is the seeking has just as much to do with humans. Think of it as the anticipation of an event or the anticipation of a prize. So best example, Christmas. We're excited because we're anticipating what's inside of that present. Once we open it, it might be cool, it might not be, but the anticipation of that present and getting it, the anticipation of lots of different rewards. Sexual desire is actually also a natural seeking desire for humans. It's the anticipation is the seeking of that reward is just as valuable and sometimes more valuable than actually getting it.
The seeking turns on your dopamines, which makes you happy, and you want your dog to be happy as much as possible. It turns that on. And that is the seeking. That's not the finding.
Right. So the more dopamine we can get the dog's brain to naturally secrete, then the happier state of mind our dog is in. We want to find ways in training and interacting with our dogs, especially dogs that have behavioral issues, anger issues, for lack of a better word. The more dopamine you can get your dog to naturally secrete, the less narcotics or drugs that you end up having to give your dog, and the less corrections, the less issues you have. You have a happier dog.
And every human, dogs, most mammals are born with the seeking. You just need to help them turn it on and understand how to do it.
Yeah, because every dog has certain things that they're genetically driven to do. And our job as a good dog parent or even a dog trainer is to find ways to give our dog an opportunity to fulfill the drives that they genetically have. And when we do that, we're increasing the dopamine and give our dog more freedom to act naturally, to be naturally how they would be. We don't want robots because normal behaviors that your dog has have evolved to satisfy the core emotions your dog needs to survive. So their natural behaviors are normal, are evolved. So we don't want to interrupt all those normal behaviors. Doesn't mean you have to let your dog chew on your couch. That's not a normal behavior. They don't have a couch in the wild anyway. But you want to give them opportunity to chew on appropriate things and then teach them what those appropriate things are.
And if you get your dog's emotions right, you will have fewer problems. Emotions drive behavior, and the more freedom you can give your dog to act naturally, the better, because the more normal behaviors evolve to satisfy the core emotions. So let's get into, so that's the only real positive emotions that dogs have. Play equals seeking. Lust and caring are two that we have. Dogs really don't have, especially when we neuter and spay them. And dogs don't really care about stuff like we do, so we won't get into those. But now we're gonna get into the three negative ones that we try to get the dogs out of that as fast as possible. The first one we're gonna go into is rage, stimulated by frustration and escalates from there. So what do you have thoughts on frustrations or rage, Wyatt?
I would say frustration or rage. I'd say the easiest way for non-dog trainers, regular dog owners to digest all this material is we were all a teenager and we all saw, even if we were one of the bad teenagers or good teenagers, that's a very good similar problem that these dogs are having. Because when a teenager's acting out with rage and they're angry all the time, it does not mean they're angry all the time. There's something else causing that. Usually it's fear or anxiety. It's just the manifestation.
Yeah.
That's really the goal, in my opinion, to look at all this stuff is what is causing this symptom. What's the root problem? Rage it's pretty easy. It's usually I don't know how to deal with this situation, or I'm not getting what I want. I'm going to lash out.
Yeah.
It does happen. We do train a lot of them. The trick is not to fixate on the actual, like we got to fix that. You can't bite people. Yeah. But you got to fix the root problem, just not the actual surface level anger and rage or something.
And all dogs are born, and humans, but we're talking about dogs. Yeah. All dogs are born with rage. These core emotions. Think of it from a wild perspective. If your dog was in the wild, it's what gives a captured animal the explosive energy it needs to struggle violently and hopefully shock the predator so they can escape. Yep. So they'd die if they didn't have a rage quadrant. The problem is we have to teach dogs how to deal with frustration, because frustration is basically a subset of rage. If they become so frustrated, then rage starts to show. But frustration really is within the rage, part. And what we can do to help them is teach our dog how to be frustrated and overcome it through impulse control.
Yep.
Impulse control. A lot of things that we do, our client will say, well, that's cool, but not sure, why we're working on that. It's because we're teaching the dog how to demonstrate and understand impulse control. Because if they can't understand impulse control, they cannot moderate their moments of frustration, and then frustration can blossom into rage, which now you have a reaction.
Yeah.
Impulse control, like stay and wait. Those are great commands to solidify and help a dog understand what impulse control is. We wait for our food. I'm frustrated because I want it right now, but I'm going to wait because I know I need to. Dogs need to experience certain amounts of frustration. Would you agree?
I would agree. And dogs are born, just like with humans, are born with rage tolerance. So this is a little trick I give when you're going to pick out a puppy 8 weeks old. You see the whole litter, they're all cute, doing all the cute puppy stuff. Get the puppy, turn it upside down. All puppies are going to try to get out of that because that's getting the frustration high. You let that dog go, that's what you want to look for. If that dog just shakes it off and is fine, ready to play again, that's the puppy you want. You don't want the puppy that comes and attacks you, because its frustration
escalated.
It's going to be hard to train that out of. And if they run away, that's another thing you don't want, because that's how they handle their frustration. Because some dogs learn it very good. Some dogs, it's really hard because it's natural for them to just turn in frustration to rage. Like people, you've seen some people that just they go from 1 to 60 in seconds. Yeah. And Charles is right. The best way is door manners, to have them wait. And another one is training the dog to let you take the food away. This builds a high frustration tolerance, because dogs do not want you to take their food because they have to have the food or they'll die. So that helps, especially the little puppies, start teaching them that you can take stuff away from them. You're going to give it back to them, but it helps them learn that they can just wait and have, like Charles says, have impulse control.
And rage is an emotion that dogs don't enjoy.
Yeah, that's true.
They don't like having their rage circuits go off any more than a human does. So it really is obedience training in that respect is really focusing a lot on teaching the dog how to deal with frustrations, how to layer frustrations in different environments and contexts, and impulse control. That's where the obedience, air quote, would come into play. And then next would be fear, right?
Fear.
The next core emotion would be fear.
Fear, yep. And fear is designated to minimize the likelihood of bodily destruction. And fear is kind of easy.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about fear, White? Because that's an easy thing to know. When you see a dog that's fearful, it's
pretty obvious. Well, I say that. It's all about you're reading their body language, what they're doing, what's going on in their environment. There's a lot of factors, and each dog is different. Fear it's pretty normal. We all have it. We all experience it probably almost every day. You're afraid of doing something. We've just got to teach them how to get over that fear in a positive way, not turning to rage or shutting down.
Yeah.
We want to teach them how to get that fear or confront that fear and realize they're not going to die.
We want to build up their confidence. You never want to punish fear out of a dog.
Not at all.
Well, you can't punish fear out of a dog.
Yeah, that's why you never want to, because you cannot. Right.
Because dogs, they live in pictures, they live in smells, they live in moments, they don't live conceptual. So if they're afraid of something, they're going to be afraid of it probably the rest of life. We just have to help them manage to live life in that fear and we are the strong ones. We help them and we be their anchor. So if a dog's afraid of loud noises on a truck, he may always be that, but if you're a good, strong leader and you help them overcome it, they could walk just by a truck, and knowing that it might trigger sometimes, but you just know that and just be forgiving of your dog for having whatever this fear is, because it's
Be
irrational.
forgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we have fears that are like, I'm afraid of mice. I mean, it's not rational. They're teeny little things I could stomp on, but I'm afraid of mice.
Yep. I'm afraid of heights. It's unreasonable, but I don't like them. So think of that. Think of a fear that you have that really is irrational or unreasonable. You wouldn't want someone to punish you out of that fear. It's not going to work. It doesn't work with a dog either. Be calm with them. Talk in a soothing voice. To just help them desensitize
There we go.
through
That's a word.
repetition.
Well, the hard part is become old school dog trainers, over disciplined punishment style training. The problem is, like a human aggressive dogs, they'll fix all the surface problems, and it looks like you're making all this progress. The dog doesn't lunge, it doesn't growl, it doesn't bark anymore because you were mean to it, so it just doesn't show that sign.
So now it's all bottled up inside.
It's just going to wait till a human's close enough and it sees its opportunity.
Explodes
And it's going to bite them, and then you have those unpredictable dogs that have to be put down. No, you made your dog that way, or someone did.
Someone did.
It's really, it does not work. It's a short-term fix that has long-term major consequences.
Right, because fear memories, like you were saying, Laura, because they're a lot of times memories, they're permanent. So it's really desensitizing to the dog and building the dog's self-confidence and trusting your leadership. It has a lot to do with trust. If you take your dog to a dog park and he gets his butt kicked in the dog park, you take him to another park, he's going to question. Obviously, he's not going to question you verbally, but he's not going to be as trusting that you took him to a safe environment because he starts doubting your leadership ability because you took him a place that got him harmed. That's why I avoid dog parks. I can't control the dogs that are in there, but that's something we always talk about. Now, the interesting thing about fear is Laura? It's the only emotion that can be joined with another emotion.
Yes,
right?
seeking, yes, or play, yes. They can. So there's an example I can give is if you leave, say in the Army, you're gone for a year, your dog sees you, your dog shows a lot of fear signs, it's laying to the ground, it's kind of whining, but its tail's going, and then it's barking, licking you. So it's like it's so happy to see you, but it's so afraid because it's seeing a ghost because it didn't think you were ever going to come back. So that's kind of
two
emotions at the same time. And that's normal. It's good. I mean, I guess it's good. It's kind of sad, but.
Yeah. But you can't have rage and happiness.
Oh, no. You can't have rage or panic. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then panic. So panic is one of the other 4 core emotions.
And that's especially important for social emotional processing related to attachment, separation stress, loneliness, and separation distress. So that is a dog that cannot be left alone because they panic. And panic is different than fear. A lot of times it has to do with pain, and it might be emotional pain, like when someone dies and they say, oh, he's has a broken heart. That's actually something that they feel. And sometimes how they whine is different than their barking. It's a complete different noise.
It's a different sound.
It's a different sound
when they're panicking, typically. Yeah, panic is hard because a lot of people think it's fear. I think the hardest emotion is the dog panicking, or are they genuinely fearful?
Yeah.
And we see a lot of panic because of post-COVID. A lot of separation anxiety dogs pre-COVID, a lot of dogs that were fine before COVID and then lost their socialization skills because they weren't around humans and dogs for about a year. But panic is probably the hardest one, I think, of really determining, is this panic or is this fear I'm seeing?
Yeah.
I think panic's probably the most one that's just not talked about.
Maybe.
Because people always talk about fight or flight.
Yeah.
Right.
They don't realize there's fight, flight, freeze.
Yeah.
And playtime. That's the 4 basic ones.
Yeah.
Freeze is the panic. You just shut it down.
And then I guess that's kind of how I look at it, because when I'm trying to determine, am I seeing panic? Sometimes it's, usually actually it's kind of clear.
Yeah.
But when it's not clear, then I ask myself, is there a fight or flight opportunity for the dog? If there's not, they couldn't fight, they couldn't flight their way out, then I'm probably witnessing panic, not fear. Because fear, they can either fight the fear or run away from the fear.
Yeah. Panic is a hard one. But so as long as you get your dog socialized out there and you get their seeking system turned on, the panic will go away. And they could be panic and fear. I don't know. Like if you put a leash on a dog that's never had a leash on, is it afraid of the leash or is it freaking panicking because now they think it's going, some emotional thing is turned on in its head and it needs to.
I think fight and flight's actually relatively easy to fix. It's an irrational thing. We can get you over irrational things by going and doing them.
Yeah.
If you are panicking, making you go on the thing that scares you, like making you go over like a scary bridge.
Yeah.
Right.
You would just shut down and hate it more.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'd hate you too.
Yes.
Yes.
It's not a fun activity for anyone.
Yeah.
You got to go be around that fear and not go on it for a while. It's a longer time fix.
And a good analogy for you with your dog. You're walking, your dog seems to like dogs, gets along with the neighborhood dogs, running around off leash with a couple dogs. You take them on a walk and they turn into Dr. Jekyll. That's what we call leash reactivity. And the reason you'll see that a lot is there is a fear based in that.
Yeah.
And why it's expressing itself on the leash is we've removed their flight option.
Yeah.
Dogs like to have options. The more options they have to escape versus, I'm having a brain cramp, fight or flight versus fight, they'll usually take the flight option. Yeah. They don't want to fight usually.
Yeah.
But if they're on a leash, they feel you have removed all options to flight. They only have one left, and that's to fight. Yeah. It's fear. They want that dog to go away. Yeah. So they aggress to make the problem go away.
And the opposite on that is if a dog has food aggression, that is fear too. They're not going to leave that food because that would get them nothing because they still want their food. So they're going to fight you for their food. So we just have to get the tolerance of the frustration built up over time. And panic, if you want to think about panic, it has more to do with social. Like if you're not, dogs are social animals. And if you're home 3 hours out of the day, they're going to have a lot of panic issues. So sometimes it's better maybe to get another dog. So they have someone in a social environment that they really, because some dogs are really social. Some dogs aren't. Some breeds don't really care about it.
They're
so
kind of independent just because of their breed. And again, if you want to really dive into the weeds, If Your Dog Could Talk, that's a book by Ralph Weber, great book. And then the other one that Laura had referenced was Animals Make Us Human by Temple Grandin. Both great books that go into a lot more detail on dogs' emotions and the blue ribbon emotions and how they apply to your dog's life. And if our discussion, connected with you, I'd invite you to reach out to us on our website, k-9culture.com. And if you have some training goals, you can feel free to enter them in our contact form, or maybe you just have a question about this podcast or your dog's behavior or training in general. You can shoot that over to us and we'll try to answer that on an upcoming podcast. And be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok for more dog training info. If you are needing help with your dog, we would love to help. You can contact us on our website or give us a call and we'll discuss any issues that you might be having with your dog and how we can help your pup with their training journey. And on next week's subject, on a scale of 1 to 10, you're a 9. I'm the one you need. We'll be discussing how do you go about picking a dog trainer. Do you just Google one? What should you look for? We'll discuss all the areas a dog owner should be basing their decision on when picking the right dog training partner to work with. Dog training, like I tell all of our clients, dog training is expensive and it's time consuming. You only want to do it once. You want it done right the first time. And we'll attempt to, help you make the right choices so that you can do it on the first time out. And from all the team here at K9 Culture, thank you for spending your time with us today. And until next week,
go
have fun with your dog.